Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome in everybody to another edition, another week of Sports Daily. Glad to have you here with us. It's Albracht and Castor. It is a Monday. We've got a weekend to react to, and we're happy to be here with you. Of course, the hotline, as always, the IHOP hotline, 869-1240 is that number to call. We welcome you there. We welcome you on our video stream as well, which you can find on the KFH Facebook page, on the KFH YouTube page, and on Twitter at Sports Daily. You can leave your comments there, and we'll get to them as well. Busy weekend here. Lots of great stuff coming for you. Glad to be here. Tommy, how was the weekend?
It was a good weekend. One of those weekends where you get done with it and you think, man, I wish I had a weekend from my weekend.
Yeah.
It was busy, a lot going on, but it's the perfect time of year to get out, enjoy the weather, enjoy the late springtime, early summertime. And yeah, it was fun, but a little tired this morning, not going to lie.
Yeah, it was the weather was as nice as you could have, just like temperature and everything else. One of those weekends where it'd been nice to play golf if you had the time. You know what I mean? But that's all right. I worked a lot this weekend. We had the Shockers softball team in action, and we'll get into that. They end the season a little shorter than we would have liked, but still a remarkable season and some remarkable careers there to get to. So we'll talk about that. Wichita State baseball begins the conference tournament tomorrow against Memphis. We have all of that to get to. The NBA Finals chug along. We've got drama in Kansas City with this stadium talk, downtown ballpark, county versus county, maybe some foul play there. Conference realignment happenings over the weekend. All kinds of stuff to get into. Oh, yeah, and a PGA championship. Brooks Koepka, star power. I wonder, and I'll ask you this in a little while, Tommy, if Brooks Koepka is the most famous, most high-profile, liked golfer on tour right now. But we'll get into that a little bit later as well. I say on tour. I should say just golfer, right? There's more than one tour these days. Let's start with basketball, Tommy. It's interesting. You seem to be pretty sure of yourself there when you said Miami had no chance in this series, even despite a Game 1 win. You seem to call me crazy for saying take the points with the Heat in the second game of the series. And now here we are, and they're boat racing Boston. We've got a Western Conference Finals with a 3-0 lead where all three games have been very, very close, and you feel like the Lakers have been in the series, and you have a Eastern Conference Finals where you thought there was one heavy underdog, and Boston looks like they have no interest, no chance in this series. In one of the more fascinating turn of events I've ever seen, Miami is just absolutely dominating that series.
Look, I'll be the first one to say that the Celtics have absolutely disappointed me. They've absolutely rolled over and died in this series and, let Miami keep the momentum. I thought going into game 2, which was Friday night, I thought that there was no chance in hell that the Celtics lose that game. I felt like that their overall star power and just the fact that, their roster from top to bottom would wake up and figure out what had went wrong in game 1 and beat the Heat in game 2 pretty handily. That didn't happen. And then game 3 last night was a complete and utter disaster for the Celtics. And so, yeah, I mean, look, I'll be the first to eat my words and say that the Celtics have absolutely disappointed. I don't know, though, if there was anybody on the face of the planet outside of that roster in Miami that thought that they had a chance to go 3-up on Boston, right? 3-0, in that series. I think that, probably there were some folks that thought that it would be more competitive, than what I think the overall general narrative has been. But come on, like that's completely otherworldly for a thought to be that Miami could go 3-0 in that series. against the Celtics. And so I don't know if that tells you more about Miami and their talent level, or more about Boston and how disappointing they've been, or maybe it's a combination of both.
It should tell us more about Miami, and that's the reason I bring this up. Isn't some like gloating mechanism, because I'm not going to gloat about the NBA. I don't know enough about the NBA to gloat about the NBA, right? What I saw though was Miami, who looked a couple of things underrated. Number one, and number two, like after game one, it sort of became, apparent like Miami's definitely better than we thought they were. But it's not because of, this overwhelming roster, which is what, Boston comparatively has. But Miami, what they told us through the first rounds should have been Miami absolutely is in this conversation and could win this series and could win an NBA championship. It's what's getting hard about the NBA, and this has been my problem for a little while, is there's so little we can take, it seems like, from the regular season, right? You can trust your eye for a team like Denver, who was the best team in the regular season by some accounts, right? And then Miami, who just sort of coasted through, and yet here they both are. Two very different paths, right? It's no longer, and we've talked about that. We talked about this last week. I think it was Friday. Like, low seeds do not make or win NBA championships. It's close to 90% of the time you're a 1 or a 2 seed, right? When you win a title. And I think that's changing if the NBA continues down this path of load management stuff and guys taking so many nights off and just sort of, skirting the regular season. I mean, the narrative is always that NBA, the problem was people didn't care about the regular season. Now they don't even try to hide it. Like, they clearly don't care about the regular season anymore. And Miami's a perfect example of that. And so we'll see. Look, I think Boston deserves some blame for sure, right? It's been a disappointment for sure. I don't think it's crazy to say Miami could go up 3-0. After game one, Tommy, that was sort of the point of that conversation, was like, guys, Miami's getting points again. That doesn't make sense to me. Like, there's a chance they're just better, right? They may not be as talented, but they're better. And that's obviously played itself out. Now, I didn't think they'd go up 3-0 and just dominate like they have. 128-102. That's embarrassing if you're Boston. And speaking of embarrassing, Jaylen Brown talked about that after the game.
I don't even know where to start. It's obvious letdown. I feel like we let our fan base, organization down. We let ourselves down. And it was collective. We can point fingers. But in reality, it was just embarrassing.
What can you say or do on and off the court to get them ready for game 4?
We just got to come out and play basketball. Come out with a great mentality. Come out and have some pride about yourself. Come out and have some pride about, who you playing for. Have some pride about whatever. And just come out and play basketball. I believe we can win the next one. So we just got to come out and play.
Yeah, I believe you can win the next one too. Can you win 4 in a row? I don't think so. This doesn't feel like that one time that somebody's coming down 3-0. Just
that
like
sounds
it does on the other side.
Sounds like a team that's cooked. Sounds like a team that's done. A team that has just rolled over and died.
But what
they might get game 4. I mean, I guess
maybe.
I mean, maybe they might. But they could easily just get swept. And can you imagine that? Can you imagine the 8 seed sweeping the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference Finals? I mean, just insane.
I don't even think we have a line on that game yet. Surely we do. Yeah, we do. And Miami, finally, look, Miami's favored in a game. They were dogs at home yesterday after those first 2 games. I'm just like, what in the world is happening? Like, what world is this? Miami was led by Gabe Vincent. Anybody? Gabe Vincent. Tom, you know where Gabe Vincent played his college ball?
I couldn't even have a guess. I have no idea.
4 years ago?
I don't know.
Santa Barbara.
Okay.
Gabe Vincent.
Fair enough.
29 points. Jimmy Butler is Jimmy Butler, but that wasn't a Jimmy Butler game. Duncan Robinson was pretty good. He's one we probably know, right? Jimmy Butler, though, gets the last laugh, Jad, on everything.
Spicy here in South Beach. Remember this in game one. Al Horford knocks down the three, goes down to one knee with the timeout sign. Gabe Vincent knocking down his third three here. Jimmy Butler moonwalks back to half court. What does he do? Takes the knee with the timeout to Al Horford.
They don't forget anything,
No.
do they? Oh, my goodness.
It's all about gamesmanship.
You better not put a chip on the shoulder of Jimmy Butler. That's what I'll say. It is remarkable. Here's what's crazy about this, Tommy, and how much of a difference. Like, did you hear the way Jaylen Brown was talking there? This is going to be the end of this Boston, thing
For
that's
sure.
happening. I mean, Brown's going to go. Like, you've got this great young roster, right? And these foundational things that you can build. It reminds me of Oklahoma City, is what it reminds me of. Back when they had Durant and Harden and Westbrook, because and that one was a little bit more of a foregone conclusion because of where they were playing, right? But Boston, people don't leave Boston, right? Unless it's for more money. But there's no chance that this stays together. Not the way this series is gone. If they lose a 7-game series, I think that you've got a good chance. No, they're done. Like, they're done. This roster's not going to stay together. Boston's going to have to start over. They're probably going to fire their coach after 1 year. And you've got
he was
Jason
never meant
Tatum
to be the head coach anyway. I mean,
No.
and
No.
I think that he's shown, he's not ready. He's just not ready. And that's not a knock on him. I think he could be a good
it
coach
is a knock
someday.
on him.
It is a knock on him, but I think he was forced into, circumstances with the whole Udoka
it's
situation
tough.
before the
Yeah.
season. It's difficult. And I think he took Boston as far as his skills would allow him to take them. And he may be a good coach someday. I don't know. He's 34 years old. He's younger than you and me, and he's leading, the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. That's really cool. He's going to get fired. And I think that you've got to tip your cap big time to Eric Spoelstra and what he's been able to do with this squad down in Miami.
I still think back and laugh to when Spoelstra got that job with the big three, and everyone was like, "Oh, here's this video room guy that, he's just there. He's just a token coach." This dude, it can't coach. Like, he's there. If I give you Pop, Kerr, or Spoelstra, who you taking?
Man, probably Pop. But still, I mean, Spoelstra's right there. And I think that it's a testament to even say that he's in the conversation with those two guys, right?
What's the difference between he and those two guys, though?
I think the difference with him and Pop is just overall longevity. And I'm not saying that Spoelstra can't get there,
here's
right?
What I would say is Kerr has been largely married, right, to Steph Curry. And Pop, through three generations, really has been married to Tim Duncan, right? David Robinson to some degree, although they weren't winning titles then, and Kawhi Leonard for a year, right? I'm not taking anything away from either of those guys. Spoelstra's done it with like 9 different versions of the Heat, I feel like, right? Jimmy Butler's the star. Would anybody, but before this postseason, if I gave you 10 picks, you think you'd take Butler?
No, because before now, it hasn't worked with Butler on other teams. It didn't work with Chicago, didn't work with Philly, and for whatever reason, I don't know if it was bad fits or bad coaching or, not putting him in the best position possible. But I mean, something has unlocked with Jimmy Butler this playoff season where in Miami, it works. It fits. He's a superstar, and so I would imagine that those other franchises, they might be kicking themselves a little bit for letting Jimmy Butler go.
But I think Spoelstra needs the credit here. Like, and obviously the players need credit, but Spoelstra, look at the roster that they're playing with. Gabe Vincent was the guy last night. I didn't know who Gabe Vincent was before last night. And in my days of knowing all the NBA players are past me, I'm aware of this. I understand this. But I mean, this is crazy. Now, we know Bam Adebayo, right? We know Struss a little bit. We know Duncan Robinson, Kevin Love's like 40, it feels like. Cam Martin, Kyle Lowry. Like, there's some guys. Caleb Martin. We know who he is, at least. We remember him in college. He was a really good, solid college basketball player. But, this is crazy. This is crazy. And I was on CBS Sports Radio yesterday, and just trying to feel it out. Like Miami, Denver is going to be fascinating because Boston has a clear issue, and it's that there's a disconnect between roster, coach, whatever it is. Denver does not have that. Denver has another guy who's one of the best and most underrated coaches in the NBA, and Mike Malone, who, remember, before he got there, Jokic was not Jokic, right? And most of that credit, of course, goes to Jokic, but it's still the credit needs to go to Malone. This is going to be a fascinating series. Denver is more talented than Miami. Denver is more motivated than Boston. Denver is better coached than Boston. But as we've seen this postseason, and look, we know neither of these series are technically over. But as we've seen this postseason,
both of them are over.
I mean, think about that series for a second and how difficult it's going to be because we're all going to just want to take Denver. Even now, even watching Miami do what Miami is doing, we're all going to sit here and Vegas and say, oh, you got to bet Denver. Yeah, you got to bet Denver. And I think that's kind of crazy.
I don't think it's that crazy. I mean, I understand the thought process of, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. I mean, I get
fool me
that.
14 times, shame
Right.
on who?
I understand all of that, but I'll tell you one thing that I know Mike Malone, even in the midst of his own conference finals going on right now against the Lakers, I'll tell you what he's currently doing right now is he's trying to learn from the mistakes of Mike Budenholzer in the first round with the Bucks and trying to learn from the mistakes of Joe Mazzulla in the conference finals with the Celtics and saying, I'm not going to let those mistakes repeat for a third time in the NBA finals. We've talked about it multiple different times on this show about how the window of opportunity for Denver is right now. And especially if they face a team like Miami in the finals. I mean, come on, like you're going to ask the Nuggets, would you rather face the Celtics or the Heat? And on paper, you'd rather face the Heat, right? And they're going to get that wish on paper, right? But I do think that there is that argument that can be made that Mike Malone can take what has happened throughout the course of this playoffs with the Heat and almost use it against them in the finals.
I don't know that anybody wants to play the Heat. Why are we? That's what I can't figure out. Like, why is it because they're an 8 seed? Is it because we don't know the players on the roster as much? Because I can't figure out, and I'm guilty of it too in the back of my head. They took down the Bucks. So Boston they took down the Bucks and Boston. You can make excuses for Boston, I guess, but you can't make excuses for the Bucks. Like, that's the thing here. It's not like they're lucky. They're taking down the best teams.
Yeah.
And so would you say going into this postseason that Denver is definitively better than Milwaukee or Boston?
I mean, they're more balanced,
before
I
the
think.
postseason.
No, probably not. Yeah,
that's what I mean.
Not.
So, like, what it's and again, I'm totally guilty of this. It's wild though for me to think about the way we're going to go into this fight because we're going to go in and say Denver's better. Denver's better team. They're better, whatever. But I don't know that they're a better team, and that's where Miami's not getting enough credit. Miami doesn't have a lot of star power, but they're clearly a fantastic team, right? And that has worked. Sometimes in the NBA, we've seen that work, not all the star power. It's been a long time, but in individual years, it works, right? And so, I mean, I'll pick Denver in that series too. I will, but I hope that, we get a good series. We've gotten a great series. The game outcomes won't probably show it in the Western Conference Finals, right? Because it could go 4-0 or 3-1 or whatever it is. But that series has been fantastic, right? Every individual game could have gone either way. It's been a great series. Miami-Boston has not been a great series. Miami has flat out dominated that series. And so I hope that in a finals, because this postseason has been so entertaining, we get a great series, right? Nothing one-sided, please.
I may be in the minority here, but I'd rather watch a Denver-Miami finals than a Lakers-Celtics finals. I might be in the minority for that. I feel like that's kind of played out. It's going to be fun to watch Jokic and Butler duel it out. It's going to be fun to watch Mike Malone, who's probably the best coach in the West, taking on
It's
Eric
gonna be a
Spoelstra, who's
blast.
probably the best coach in the East. It's going to be so much fun to watch. I'd rather watch that than Darvin Ham and Joe Mazzulla coaching against each other in the finals.
Well, I just am tired of Lakers Celtics, right? It's not. I'm glad that, and Miami is not lacking for championships or anything like that either. But there is, like, we're all gravitated to Jimmy Butler and this team and the chip on their shoulder and all that stuff. I'll be rooting pretty hard for Denver. Denver fans deserve it. Jokic deserves it. I looked further into my Jokic Dirk comparisons when yesterday was CBS, because it's a more, the national audience. I really wanted to kind of get some perspective. I mean, the similarities, Tommy, in their careers is staggering. They're both 5-time All-Stars in their first 8 seasons. Dirk reached the finals against Miami. That was his 8th season. This is Jokic's 8th. Looked like he's going to get there. Reached it for the first time. Now, Dirk Dallas had one of the worst finals collapses we've ever seen in that finals. But that's kind of sitting there for Jokic too. And, it's crazy. It's crazy, the comparison of those two. But that was why. And we'll get into the Western Conference Finals as well here. That was more East focused, and we'll do that. We got a PGA Championship to talk about, all kinds of good stuff today on the program. Would love to hear your thoughts. You can call us on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. You can also get in touch with us on our video stream. You can see it variety of different ways. We've always got some great commenters on there, whether it be on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, whatever it is that you watch us. Jad Chambers producing for us. I'm Jacob Albracht alongside Tommy Castor, rolling on a Reaction Monday here with Sports Daily. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily on KFH. Brooks Koepka is your champion. Tommy, tell me why I care about that.
I can't tell you why you should care about that because I don't care about that.
You're not a Brooks Koepka guy?
Oh, I can't stand Brooks Koepka. I'm not
I
a
thought
fan
it is.
No.
Is Koepka the one people don't like, or is DeChambeau the one people don't like?
I think they're both kind of in that same category a little bit. I don't know. I mean, they had that big feud. They didn't like each other for a while. They both defected to the Live Tour. I'm not a big Koepka fan. I haven't been for a long time. Honestly, I was locked in. I watched it. I love watching, major championship Sundays down the stretch, especially when there's a lot of, intrigue and it's close and that sort of thing. But I'll tell you what, I couldn't care less that Brooks Koepka won at all. Not at all.
See, I do think he's as compelling as any golfer on tour. Like, if you gave me a list of names to pay attention to, I mean, he's at or near the top of it. And that's the thing. Like, I think he plays a nice villain for people, but I'm not sure there are more compelling golfers on tour right now. Sam Stevens,
What
by
makes
the
him
way,
compelling?
Wichita.
I mean, I don't know I don't know why you
just
say he's compelling.
because he's always in the mix and people either seem to love him or hate him. That's compelling to me. Like Scotty Scheffler. You think Scotty Scheffler's compelling at this point?
Sure, I do, because he's always in the mix and people tend to love it.
He's really good. He is really good. I think he's getting there, right? But he's not driving people to watch or not watch a tournament like Brooks Koepka is. I mean, I think you got to go to like Rory McIlroy. Spieth had that a little bit for a while. I think there are so many good golfers on tour right now that you've got to have a little something extra. And I think Koepka has that. Love it or hate it, he's got it. Sam Stevens, by the way, not a good final round. He ended up 72nd, made the cut though, which was cool. But I don't know. I was not very engaged in this tournament. I think it's probably because there was, too many other things that I was excited about. The U.S. Open is usually the other one that I really get excited for. This one should have, though, like, historically, difficult tournaments like this do pique my interest, right? Where guys are struggling a lot, and they got a little better through the weekend, it seemed like. But, struggling golfers makes me happy because I'm one of them. And I like it. And it was moderately competitive. Koepka sort of controlled things on the last day and didn't really let anybody make it super competitive. But I don't know. I wasn't
Hovland was
super
right
into
in
this
there.
one.
Hovland was right in there until about 16, got into some trouble. And then at that point, Koepka put his foot on the gas and won it by a couple strokes at the end of it. I think my issue with Koepka overall, he's just a jerk. And, it's just one of those, like, he's got that ego, and sometimes that's fun to watch, and it's fun to have that villain. I find it unpleasant. Like, I think that you've got a ton of athletes today that have ego and cockiness or whatever, and it's entertaining. I don't find his cockiness and ego entertaining. I find it unpleasant. I find it, I want to turn off the TV just because I'm not a fan of that. So I'll tell you what I was locked into more than Koepka winning the tournament. Did you follow this Michael Block story? Because that was so much more fun, and I was so much more locked into that than I was Koepka winning the tournament.
And where did he end up, by the way? I am aware of the story.
15th.
Yes.
15th.
And I didn't realize he finished that high. So that's awesome. So he's a pro, right? He's just a pro somewhere?
Correct. Yeah, he qualified because there's a couple of spots open in the PGA Championship every year for the top teaching professionals in the country that get to play in the tournament. And typically it's, a nice story that get to come in and play and they don't do well at all. This guy did really, really well and made the cut. Got to play with Rory on Sunday, which was awesome. Made a hole-in-one on number 15. And then he made a putt on number 18 to finish 15th, which means he automatically qualifies for next year's PGA Championship, which never, ever happens. And so I was so much more locked into that and the amount of fun this guy was having. And, I feel like that's what golf is all about, not the villain and Brooks Koepka winning the tournament. So I'm glad that other storyline was there because I was so much more locked into that.
Yeah, I wasn't locked into any of it. I did see the block story, which is I'm always in for a good story. So that was interesting. Most people throughout the weekend, when they were mentioning the tournament, they were mentioning their interest in Koepka. It was more about him, like what's Koepka doing today? And this was not on, not when he was clearly the leader, than it was anything else with the tournament. And that's why I posed that question. What's made me wonder, is Koepka that guy now? Is he becoming that guy where he is the person that people are most interested in what he's doing one way or the other in every tournament? I think he might be. I think he might be the guy right now. And this could change because I don't think he's got like a stranglehold on this. But and this is where the LIV thing comes in, right? Because you don't get to see him very often. And it's like, I think that he is, though. Like in these majors, I think the most people, generally speaking, want to know what he's doing. And, it's not like it was when Rory, who was probably the biggest, I think, after Tiger and Phil. Still Tiger, let's be honest. But I think Koepka is that guy. And that's just, anecdotal on just sort of what I hear and listen to. Most people, when they talk about majors, to me, they're like, "Where's Koepka? What's he doing?" And I don't know. I don't really care. He's on the LIV tour, and I don't pay that much attention to him anymore. But I think he's taken that mantle.
There was such a big difference. And I don't know, you never watched the Full Swing documentary on Netflix, did you? Okay. So there's an entire episode, because you brought up, both of these guys. There's an entire episode dedicated to Brooks Koepka and Scotty Scheffler in one episode. And it kind of goes back and forth between the guys. And you just see the difference between them, and Koepka's in his mansion with his supermodel wife. And at the time he's not playing very well. And he's so salty, and he's down on himself, and he's, acting like he's too cool for the game, and he doesn't care what anybody's doing. And like, he's set up to be this big time villain. Then you've got Scheffler, who's like the all-American kid, right? The nicest guy in the world. And, he's got, a cute wife and a cute house and a cute neighborhood, and like just the friendliest guy that you could ever come across. And they put these two guys in this episode basically against each other, I think, to show how different they actually are. But one thing is the same between them. They're both incredible golfers. And we saw that yesterday. Scheffler came back and was only 2 strokes back and tied for second. They're both right there. But I think that's one thing that I do enjoy watching, is how like the different personalities between Koepka, who's like a rock star, right?
Yeah.
He's like your quintessential athlete. And then Scheffler, who's just an aw shucks kind of guy.
But don't you always need that, especially in golf? Like, think back, like everyone was trying to find that with Tiger, right? Because Tiger was painted in that Koepka mold. And, you've got this compelling, bombastic, back in his prime guy who looks physically like he should be a football player, not a golfer, like kind of like Koepka, right? And then you've got, first it was David Duval, right? And then they sort of created this image of that for Phil Mickelson, which I don't think is the case, but that was, that's the image of Phil we had for a long, long time, right? And so I think golf does that intentionally, and that's good. Like, it's good because that will add to it. If you've got, that, and I'm sure for a lot of people that did watch that was definitely like in the forefront of this tournament. That's a
sure.
Good thing.
And so, of course, I watched that and I'm like, give me Scheffler all day. Yeah. Like the way that I watched Koepka, in that episode, I'm completely turned off by him. Like, want nothing to do with him.
Yeah,
I think he's a jerk, And then I'm like, let's go Scheffler, Yeah. Well, it's it's kind of manufactured, it's kind of a narrative in that way. And I get it. I understand it. And sure, like, Koepka it was historic for him to win that tournament. I mean, that's his 5th major. There aren't a ton of players that have won 5 or more, right? It puts him above Rory, as far as majors won. So I get the historic value of it. Personality wise, the guy turns me off. And so, and I think, yeah, some of that comes from watching that documentary.
It does. And it's interesting. I don't know. I don't know if you can get it would just like golf's always better when there's a head to head or something like it. And maybe that's it. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but star power winning tournaments is probably always good. I would imagine the numbers were pretty good for the PGA Championship because there was star power involved at the top. That tournament is in the books. Up next is U.S. Open, right, in June, and then the Open Championship after that. So we'll see. We will just continue to watch these majors and watch Sam Stevens now as he is making noise on the tour, which is awesome.
He's going to do something. He's going to win a tournament one of these days.
He finished second. He finished second. So, if that's the best finish for him this year, that's okay because he's made a bunch of money already, right? And so he's had, I think, 3 or 4 top 25s. Now he's made the cut at a major. Like he just keeps on doing things, right? That sort of, and we know how that goes in golf. Like you can get hot and you can, string it together. He did not have a good final round, unfortunately, but just in general terms, heck yeah. We had, this guy from our backyard makes a weekend at a major and has finished second at a big time tournament. The Valero's not a small tournament, which is where he finished second. So good stuff there. We'll continue. It gives us something to watch on tour. Like for me now, I can watch Ryan Palmer if he's playing, Gary Woodland if he's playing. Now Sam Stevens is in the mid. That's what I like. That's honestly like for me, that's what tunes me in to watch golf on the weekends. Because right now, I got NBA playoffs. I'm going to watch that. I had Wichita State softball. Yeah, I'm going to watch that. I had Rangers baseball, which has become nightly viewing for me again, which I can't tell you how happy for that I am in my life.
You're taking Rangers baseball over the PGA
absolutely.
Championship?
Are you kidding me? Yes.
I didn't watch a single minute of Braves baseball this weekend because I'm locked into major championship golf.
Tommy, I have been turning on the NBA finals at the conclusion of Rangers games. I've been starved for baseball now for at least 5 years, right? And for the Royals and the Rangers have been on sort of similar paths, which has not been good, right? I'd like to have at least one, right? At least one is better than both, almost, because I baseball this time of year, being able to throw it on and just lightly pay attention is a part of the summer for me. Like I'll be listening to Rangers or Royals. I'll be watching Rangers or Royals. And unfortunately, the Royals haven't been able to get it together. So it's been Rangers. Yeah. I mean, I'm watching that over everything right now.
Hey, so the Braves took 2 of 3 from the Mariners this weekend. So you're welcome. Trying to do our part to help you in that division race.
Let's do that to the Astros, who are heating up now, which we all knew they would. I think they're on like a 7-game win streak. So that's not okay. Like nobody wants that to happen. I haven't checked it. I wonder what my Rangers futures bet sitting at now. I bet it's higher than 106.
Cash it out, baby.
They're doing this without DeGrom. This isn't a Rangers show. I get it, but I'm just saying, like you can all follow along on this journey of a futures bet that we've got here with the Rangers. You can all follow along and enjoy in that. 2 $100 bets at 50-1 odds. Okay, do the math, and then another like $20 bet with 60-1 odds. I'm all in, baby.
I would have cashed it out a couple of weeks ago. So, hey, more power to you for hanging in there.
This will be drama for everybody to live with me this summer. I'll agonize over these things. 869-1240. That's the IHOP hotline. All kinds of things to get to. Before we hit the break, let's talk about the Western Conference Finals a little bit more specifically. Let's do that next, and then we can turn the page to some other topics on our plate. Sports Daily, Albracht and Castor coming right back.
It's time to get back to the sports talk.
All right, let's do this thing. Go!
Sports Daily is on KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily. You've got Nuggets, Lakers tonight. Nuggets trying to close it out. What an interesting series this has been, because we wondered, like, if the Lakers show up and, you know, their stars play well, can Denver handle that? And they have, right? The stars for LA has not played poorly in this series. It just hasn't been enough. And Denver's really, really good. And I think, you know, as we talked earlier about, like, who do we take in a finals that features Denver, Miami? I'll take Denver, and it doesn't have anything to do with Miami. It has everything to do with Denver, because Denver's done some pretty incredible things in this series. Remember that first game when they basically offensively played as good as you can play, and LA was right there, and they held on. And you were like, oh, the Lakers are going to feel good after that game. Then in game two, very different style to get to the win, right? And then in game three, again, you have LA where Anthony Davis goes for 28 and 18. LeBron sniffs a triple-double, right? 23, 7, and 12. Jokic doesn't play a Jokic game, right? He still was good, but not like what we know he is a lot of the time. And Denver wins that one probably more comfortably than they've won any of them. And they're finding all these different ways, in the Lakers' best, which has been really good, isn't good enough to hang in this series, in these games, and Denver's finding ways to win. Denver's really impressive, and it is probably our fault for putting too much into what we've seen from Denver in past years, because Denver has been unlucky in postseasons, right? They've been missing players or for whatever reason. Like, we're finally getting the full strength, full throttle version of Denver, and they look fantastic.
Sorry about that. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I mean, I think that there is, you know, that thought with Denver, and we talked about it before, about how balanced they are from top to bottom, and they just kind of go in and they handle their business. And Jokic is going to get, you know, a ho-hum triple-double, but then they've also got all of these other weapons that are surrounding him. And so I think that's what makes them so deadly, whether they're facing the Lakers or facing the Heat, you know, in the upcoming finals, is the fact that they just have so many different ways to get it done and so many different ways to win, you know, a basketball game. They can get out in front early and then, you know, hang on, you know, if the other team comes back like the Lakers did in game one, you know, they can come from behind if they need to. There are so many different ways that Denver has shown that they can be effective in the playoffs. They can lean on Jokic, or they can have Jokic be, you know, a decoy and have other guys like Porter and Murray and others, you know, be able to come in and have amazing, incredible games. So I think that's what makes them so difficult to beat, you know, in the playoffs in general, is just how versatile they are. Just the ability to win in a variety of different ways. That's going to be really difficult for Miami. I think that Miami will fare better than the Lakers have against the Nuggets. But I mean, come on, like, I'm still going to take Denver to win the finals. Miami, it's been great. And I think, kind of to your point, it's not because I don't believe in Miami. I think Miami is really cool and it's a great story, but Denver is just so much better from top to bottom.
Yeah. But are they that much better from top to bottom than Boston? I mean, they're playing better, obviously. They're coached better. But roster to roster, I think they're moderately comparable.
I think they're better than Boston. I think that, you know, even on paper, I mean, what we're talking on paper and we're talking like on the court and coaching, I think all components combined.
You got two all NBA guys are on that Boston roster, two of them. And Tatum, I think, is right in the same conversation with Jokic as like the conversation for the best player in the league. I think they're similar.
But those guys aren't disappointing the way that the Denver roster has.
Obviously. But I think just like talent to talent and all that stuff, and you know, they're very similar to me, except that Denver's playing really well and Boston's not, and Denver's clearly better coach and all that kind of stuff. But you know, tip of the cap to them, and tip of the cap to the Lakers. And here's the other thing I want to talk about out of this. Regardless of what happens in this series, Boston feels like this version of Boston is done after this. I don't feel that way about LA. I think this LA team can have a good offseason and be right back here next year. I do think that's still possible for them. I don't think that they're done yet. Do you?
I don't know if I'm ready to say they're done. I think that they are getting closer to the end, though. Like there might be one more year in this window
because they're aging stars, but I think that they have a chance to improve this roster now if they just buy into the same philosophy they had at the deadline and can get some, stop trying to bring in washed up superstars, right? Like just go get a bunch of good pieces like they have.
I will say this, knowing that the window is closing slowly but surely, watch out for them next season because I think that they'll be in desperation mode a little bit.
Well, sure, yeah.
I think they're going to be an incredibly dangerous team next year.
I also think they've become maybe a little bit more attractive to a free agent than maybe they would have been before because somebody could see that and say, they might have something here. 869-1240, that's it for hour number one. Let's go out with a giveaway. Win Surge on us. You can get a pair of 4-pack of vouchers for tickets to a game of your choice. We've got those for you. Jad will take them on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240 to our first caller. Sports Daily, hour number two, coming right back.
Laugh Out Loud Mornings with Bob and Tom on 97.5 and 1240 KFH. Wichita's most listened to sports radio. Always live on the free Odyssey app.
Forever Lawn South Central Kansas has the best reputation in the Midwest for artificial turf projects of all sizes. Forever Lawn sports grass is requested by both schools and homeowners and can be installed at football fields, baseball diamonds, bullpens, and even indoor training facilities. Can't get grass to grow or tired of paying outrageous water bills? Forever Lawn South Central Kansas can even repair existing artificial and natural sports surfaces. Ready to see what Forever Lawn can do for you? Call 316-688-0722. Tell them you heard about them on KFH.
I'm attorney Tyler Patterson. Patterson Legal Group helps hundreds of people each year with their car wreck cases. That's a lot of checks for a lot of happy people. And as our way of saying thanks, we're committed to making Kansas a better place for everyone. Over the years, we've donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to local nonprofits in the community. When you hire Patterson Legal Group, you're not just getting a team of legal professionals, you're helping make Kansas a better place for everyone.
Patterson Legal is the way to go. Call 550-0000.
Hello, I'm Howard Mackler, founder of Innovation Refunds. You've heard me talking about the payroll tax refund for months. I'm so proud that we've helped over 15,000 businesses claim over $5 billion in cash incentives. If you own a business, even if you've asked your CPA about this, you owe it to yourself to take another look. Every client is assigned a licensed and insured tax attorney who evaluates your company at my expense to accurately determine eligibility. Innovation Refunds has hundreds of 5-star reviews on Trustpilot and Google, and your business might be entitled to receive up to $26,000 per employee. Businesses of all types can qualify, including medical, professional, construction, even nonprofits. Please don't miss out on this. Even your doctor would tell you to get an expert second opinion, and we do a lot of work for doctors. Download the Innovation Refunds app now or go to getrefunds.com to potentially get a payroll tax refund of $26,000 per employee. Getrefunds.com. Getrefunds.com.
Growing up, nothing was more fun than playing outside, climbing trees and getting dirty. Hi, this is Larry Ryan with Ryan Lawn and Tree. Well, we grew up, but now we love working outside, creating beautiful lawns, caring for trees and shrubs, fixing irrigation systems, and providing our customers with industry-best pest services. Our Ryan Pros are passionate about creating spaces your family, friends, and even pets can enjoy. Our Ryan Pros in those clean red trucks are highly trained, full-time employee owners. And as an owner, they're personally committed to providing you with unmatched results and award-winning 5-star customer service. And we're local, so no 1-800 number here. Visit RyanLawn.com today for a free estimate. Hey, and if you want an outdoor career with us as an employee owner, visit RyanLawn.com. I personally guarantee you'll be glad you did.
The back of your closet is no place for your old worn-out boots. Bring the boots back to Red Wing Shoes. We have you covered. For a limited time, bring in your old, nasty, worn-out boots and receive $25 towards a brand new pair. Purchase a new pair of Red Wings, Work, or Irish Setter. New shoes are better for your feet and will make your work go faster. So whether you like to hunt or you're on your feet all day, stop by Red Wing Shoes and check out our selection. We're fully stocked for your footwear needs. Bring the boots back to Red Wing Shoes, 6660 West Kellogg.
Go Hog Wild Pit Barbecue. Hog Wild, get some for you.
Welcome summer with Red, White, and Barbecue. Every Hog Wild location will be open this Memorial Day from 11 a.m. until, 8 p.m. Josh Nicolette, Hog Wild partner and general manager at Harry and Rock Road, along with his team, are ready to help.
We're firing up the Hog Wild kitchens this Memorial Day so you can take the day off with family and friends. Call ahead or stop by for slow smoked ribs, pulled pork, brisket, hot links, and a variety of classic cookout sides.
Wherever you plan to celebrate your Memorial Day, be sure Hog Wild's award-winning barbecue is part of your plans. Order online at GoHogWild.com. 6 locations in Wichita, also in Derby, El Dorado, Salina, and Hutchinson.
Go Hog Wild Pit Barbecue. Hog Wild, get some for you. But don't be late, we close at 8.
The KFH Studios, powered by Devon James Injury Lawyers. Call 888-8888. That's 888-8888.
Hey, it's Jim Rome. Join me afternoons at 11 on the #1 sports station in Wichita, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Hello, Wichita. This is Tom from the Bob and Tom Morning Radio Show, and we are on the air in Wichita, the Bob and Tom Show. Find us mornings right here on 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Town got another apartment.
All right, welcome in, everybody. It is hour number 2 of Sports Daily. I'm Jacob Albracht. He's Tommy Castor. Chad Chambers producing for us. Glad to have you with us here as we make our way through a Reaction Monday. Congratulations to Mark for winning our Wind Surge vouchers there. Happy to give those away. Happy to send you to the game on us here at Sports Daily. Tommy, let's dig into this ballpark debate. The Royals are engaged, in my opinion, in some shenanigans here. Basically, from what the way that I take this is, you've got 2 counties, and I don't know the geography of Kansas City tremendously well, but you've got Clay County, which is the upper right quadrant, right, of the Kansas City metro area, and then you have Jackson County, which is where the Royals currently are, in Missouri there, right? Am I on there? Is that an easy way to describe that?
I think that's right. Yep.
I'd
have to pull out a map, but I think that's
which
right.
Which is sort of the bottom right portion, the Missouri side, right? Because half of it's on Kansas, essentially.
Right.
We know the Royals, for the most part, we haven't heard any rumors of them trying to come to the Kansas side. But, you've got the bottom right part of the metro and the top right part of the metro. And, a part of this new ballpark is always been, we've heard from the Royals, like taking care of Jackson County and all the tax money for Jackson County that you've had, your deal won't get worse. It'll be the same and all these things. But now there's this long, opinion letter. I don't even know what this thing was, from Clay County, and exploring options with Clay County and this creative idea to make a North Kansas City region, blah, 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 blah. And Jackson County's hang on, what? You're trying to sell everybody on the need and the desire to do this, and now you're going to flirt with a different county? We've been your partners in this forever. What is happening here? So much so that the mayor's involved, Mayor Lucas, who clearly is annoyed by this and doesn't want the Royals to, have an intrastate bidding war going on. And to me, I sit back and I'm like, man, the Royals are just trying to get as many public tax dollars as they can without, by the way, putting a good product on the field. And I'm like, what? Like, what are we doing here? Like, I don't know that it's nefarious necessarily, but if you're going to convince a region to get behind, like this is the worst thing that could happen. This paints the Royals in such a bad light to me, Tommy.
Well, and now you've got Frank White involved, who I think is a commissioner or council member or something in Jackson County. So you've got a Royals legend who is now chiming in and saying, what the heck is going on? What are the Royals doing? And that's a bad look. That's bad optics when you've got a legend in Frank White who's now being critical of the conversations going on with the Royals in Clay County. I mean, that's probably almost as bad as George Brett getting involved. Like Frank White is one step down from George Brett when it comes to legends of the Royals franchise. And so it's messy. And there's part of me, I almost wonder if this is intentional a little bit on the part of the Royals to be able to try to distract away from how bad the team is right now.
Oh, no, I don't think it's that.
I mean, come on. Like, I think that it's like, hey, let's get some other conversations going and try to have everybody ignore the fact that the team is so terrible right now.
No, see, I think it's more about trying to get these two counties to bid against each other and pony up the most, public money that they can so that the Royals have as little on the line with the new. That's what I see it as. Like, how can we get these two, because everyone's going to freak out, right? Like, oh, we can't lose the Royals. I don't know how much. I don't know. Like, to me, this rubs a lot of your fans the wrong way. At least it does to me. And again, that's not where I live. So I'm speaking a little out of turn in the sense that it's just like it's a far away perspective on this. And I'm not from here or this region, right? Like, it's not. It's almost not my place. But as I look at it from an outsider's perspective, it's like, man, they're trying to get these two counties to bid against each other. And I don't know how I feel about it, because that's what the Chiefs are doing when they're flirting with going to the Kansas side, right? Like, that's what they're doing too. They're trying to leverage more, I think, public dollars into building a new stadium and a new facility. And like, the overall theme of that bugs me. And because I've said this a million times in the Chiefs scenario, like, if you're the state of Kansas, we should do everything we can to get the Chiefs. From a public perspective, it would become one of our greatest exports, NFL football, from a state's perspective. It really would. And so, and knowing that you're being manipulated that way, I'm still like, we should probably do that. I don't know that the Royals is the same. I don't know. Major League Baseball is different than minor league baseball. A new downtown ballpark does put Kansas City at a higher profile, but I never really thought of it from a county versus county perspective there, because they've always just sort of been partners with Jackson County, and that's been the impression we've been given in all of this until this. And to me, and I think this is why you see like the lawmakers, the mayor and Frank White, so annoyed and irritated, is like, hang on a minute, like what is all this talk? Like, we haven't even, right. And I don't know what the behind the scenes conversations are, but like, you can't all of a sudden, go start flirting with somebody else. Like, we're trying to work through our own deal here.
Yeah. Keep in mind too, that the Royals are under lease with Jackson County until the year 2030. So they've got another 7 years with their current lease with Kauffman Stadium. So, I don't know why the county
quick to pull out and say, hey, you better watch it here.
Why in the world would Jackson County be willing to let the Royals out of their lease to go to a neighboring county to build a stadium? Right. So, I mean, that's going to play into it a little bit too. I think one thing that is really interesting to watch in not just the Royals situation, but big picture with Kansas City in general. And we've talked about, could an NHL team make it to Kansas City? And, the NBA looks to be, probably not likely to happen, for that metro. But as far as a big picture is concerned, there's something going on, and it's happened for the last several years, where the states of Kansas and Missouri have entered into a truce with one another. And I don't know exactly, I mean, there's no legal bearing on this, right? But it's almost like a public, hey, Kansas isn't going to try to take away commerce from Missouri and vice versa. And so that's publicly the case. I don't know how shaky that is, and that's something to keep our eyes on because, we've talked about the Chiefs, and that's conjecture there and what that might look like. That's one thing when you've got two states who are battling potentially something out like that. It's another thing when it's two counties in general in the same state that are, fighting against each other and pitting taxpayers, basically against each other in that regard. So I think big picture wise, I know that publicly there is this quote unquote truce between the two states, but I don't know how long that's going to last, and that's going to be really interesting to watch.
Well, it does make you wonder, right? Is if the Royals are clearly flirting with another county, would they flirt with another state? Would they come across to the southwest portion of the Kansas City Metro? Would they go, into the Legends area, which is what everybody always points to, where you've got a racetrack and a soccer field and all this stuff?
Already got a ballpark there. I mean, it's not obviously going to be able to work with the Royals, but there's a ballpark that's already sitting right there that you could probably retrofit, to fit a professional baseball team. And so I think that's part of it also when you're looking at.
You want to get downtown. Don't you like, you want to get downtown. And I'm just seeing a comment here of JB, and I'm glad that we're getting, some people interacting that know more of the Kansas City geography. But JB says, North Kansas City, which is this Clay County part, is a suburb. It'd be like putting them on the Kansas side. It doesn't really fit the profile of downtown. That was my first reaction, right? Is hang on a minute. You can't go into another county. In the renderings and things that we've seen, there's like a specific place for this. And so are you throwing that out the window now? Is this more about being downtown and, or is it more about, this is probably where Mayor Lucas is annoyed. Is it more about being downtown and doing all that? Or is it more about getting the most public dollars you can get? I don't know. It certainly feels like it's now about getting the most public dollars you can get. And if that's the case, like, one, that's annoying.
That's clearly what it's about. Clearly.
If I'm a Jackson County resident, like that's really, really annoying and kind of undermines things a little bit. And then if I'm the state of Kansas, I'm like, well, hang on a minute here. Like, do we need to get involved in this? Like, do we need to make a phone call and say, hey, come on over. You want some public money? Because Kansas and Missouri are in two different, like, we're not in the same place. Like, Kansas is still trying to drive these things, right? And Missouri's, I don't know. I just, like, the NFL is a no-brainer. Whether Major League Baseball is a no-brainer, I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that. And then it becomes also a question of, like, for the Chiefs to come across, like, for the overall economy, like, how far down is that trickle for tax dollars? Like, are we paying for that out of Wichita? I don't want to pay out of Wichita. And I don't care where the Royals play. Like, I don't want to. I don't want any of my money to do anything with that. So it's a mess, man. And
look, there's another.
I don't think.
Yeah, there's another element to this, and that is the sports wagering element a little bit. And I'm not saying that's completely related to this,
because it's dead again in Missouri.
Right. It does show the difference between the state of Kansas and the state of Missouri, and how, aggressive Laura Kelly, the governor of Kansas, was in approving sports wagering for this state. Meanwhile, you've got the state of Missouri where it's running into brick walls left and right. And, it's crazy how you've got, for instance, look at the Chiefs, for example, and they've got an official sports betting partner, and they've got all of this stuff, but you can't bet the games in the state, right? You got to go to the Kansas side to be able to do that. And so while that may not directly tie into new stadiums and that sort of thing, it does show an example of how aggressive the state of Kansas has been compared to the state of Missouri.
Yes. And that's why we had, people thought I was crazy, Tommy, when I said that the second that the Chiefs flirted the rumor, I went in and I said, guys, I think this is going to bring gambling to the state of Kansas. I think it's going to get pushed through. And I was like, and everyone kind of, and I was like, I'm just telling you, like, if there really is a chance that Kansas can get the Chiefs, they're going to do everything and they should. Like, our lawmakers, it wasn't just Laura Kelly, it was all of them. They were like, oh yeah, right. let's get on because that's it was logical to me. Like, this is like, because it's always kind of on the fence. And, I don't think people truly cared as much as they grandstanded to care if people were wagering. And then the second, like, this very obvious boon for the state comes to the table, everyone's like, yeah, okay, let's do this. Now, Missouri hasn't done that. And yeah. I don't know if
they fought it tooth and nail. The
Yeah.
politicians, I've kind of followed it, and the hearings, the politicians are fighting it. Like, they don't, for whatever reason, don't want sports wagering, in that state. And so it's going, in a lot of different directions, and it's going
I
in
don't
all
know enough
directions,
about
but
Missouri
positive,
politics
right?
and lobbying and all that. I don't know enough about it to know.
But here's the other thing to keep in mind, and how it all relates when you're talking about the Chiefs and potentially, could they ever come to the state of Kansas? Think about this. While there might be a truce between the two states, and so you're not going to see probably Kansas publicly courting the Chiefs to come over to the Kansas side, if the state makes it very attractive behind the scenes and the Chiefs then choose Kansas, then
Well, they've
are
already
you
done
really
that.
breaking that truce, right? Like, you're not publicly coming out and saying it, but you're cultivating a landscape with, wagering and public dollars and all of these other things, where it becomes really attractive for the professional teams to cross the border. At that point, all bets are off.
I'm stunned that the Chiefs flirting with Kansas has not driven the betting thing in Missouri. I don't know Missouri politics. Don't know them at all. Like, I don't know the reputation. I don't know the history. I don't know who they are. I don't know like their casino lobby. I don't know anything. I don't know anything about Missouri politics. But Kansas, generally speaking, when push comes to shove, and Kansas has a reputation of this from an outsider's perspective, and I see it to a large degree, is, kind of level-headed on certain things, and like getting a big battery factory or 2 or 3 like they have now. Like, there's sort of unity in that, balancing a budget after some problems. There's been some unity in that, and some there's a bit of a mess, and there's always going to be politics involved. But like, usually in the state of Kansas, that's how you have, I think, a Democratic governor multiple times now in a state that largely leans to the other side. That's the reputation Kansas has. I think it's an interesting reputation. So, yeah, I think Kansas will be much more unified in its approach, not just to the Chiefs. And look, Major League Baseball teams want to be downtown. NFL teams don't care about being downtown. Like, it's more about, where can I get enough parking, right? Where can I get, like, they don't care about that. Major League Baseball teams do. And if John Sherman moves the Royals and does not end up downtown, like, if you're going to convince people that you need to have a new ballpark, the only thing that you have is to say we're going to put them downtown. And then you don't end up kind of being downtown in the first place. Like that, I don't know. I think it's a bad look, and I do think it's just leverage. The Royals trying to get more public dollars.
They're not going to be, I really don't think they're going to be in Clay County. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, look, I think that if you were definitively ranking, not the likelihood, but the desire, like where it's best for the Royals to be, I think that you would say downtown is probably number 1. Probably the Kansas side is number 2. Staying in Jackson County is probably number 3. And then Clay County is down there at the bottom. Like, I don't see that happening. This is purely conjecture. And I see it as, just a way to pit a couple of different neighboring counties against each other to try to come up with the most public dollars possible.
And John Sherman's doing his job, right? He's trying to get public dollars. I get it, but I don't like it. I don't understand it. I never understand why pro sports franchises need public dollars to build their stadiums. Like, you're not giving us a revenue share. You are through taxes, but you're not giving us a revenue share of your ticket sales.
Right.
Like, let's come up with an equitable conversion of how many public dollars went into building that, and we'll take that much of the profit. Like, whatever the MLB revenue sharing numbers are, we want that cut back too. And it doesn't work that way. And I'm like, what? Why?
Yeah.
Like, who was the first one to create this Pandora's box of public dollars to build private businesses? And for, things that drive a ton of high paying jobs, that's one thing. Like, but Major League Baseball team, like, yeah, you bring jobs in to the stadium, but you're also killing other jobs from the other stadiums. So, like, what's the net gain here from a taxpayer perspective? I don't know what it is. I don't know. And then, so it bugs me. And so, like, Denver, I believe, and LA, the 2 new big football facilities in state, those are all privately funded from what I understand. Like, Kroenke built that whole thing by himself in LA. And Denver, they're doing the same thing, again, from what I understand. Like, do that. Like, just build it yourself and you keep all the money you make from it.
Well, and here's the other thing too, that I know I'm oversimplifying the entire thing because we're talking politics and all this other stuff, but I guarantee you, if the team was a little bit better, you could probably have a little
the
bit
other
of
element.
a more receptive public willing to move your team, right?
If
Like
this
there's
conversation
no
is
motivation
happening,
right now, you know?
if this conversation's happening in 2012, it's a very different conversation. And that's the Royals' biggest issue right now is they've got to figure out how to get the product on the field to a point where everybody wants them. They've got to be really careful.
We are a week before Memorial Day, and the Royals have been irrelevant in the American League Central for a month at this point. I mean, come on. Like there would be a better appetite for the taxpayers to, hey, maybe we can offer up some public dollars here, to bring a successful franchise, to the city, to our county, to whatever it is, wherever, downtown, whatever it is. You'd probably have a better appetite for that if the product on the field was better. And it's not right now. And it hasn't been outside of 2 years. It hasn't been in more than 30, 35 years, so where's the appetite there?
Well, the appetite is there. We saw that because they were they were right up at the top in attendance in those years they were competitive. Like it is as simple as them just needing to be good. Like that's it. Like, they don't, some teams face challenges of even when we're good, we can't draw. The Royals don't face that challenge.
Right.
They've shown us that when they're good, they draw. Like go look at their attendance numbers when they were competitive like that. And they were very good drawing team. They can't figure that out. Now, we pay more attention to the Royals than most because we're the flagship station, obviously, and we have interest in their future and all those things. So we pay more attention, and they are scoring more. They didn't have a good offensive series at all against the White Sox, right? They didn't have it like really poor offensive series this past weekend in Chicago. But it does become, and the Royals will get more interesting toward the middle of the season as the trade deadline comes in to play for sure. But it is still like, where's the long-term hope? And the question's going to become in any individual offseason as John Sherman is having these conversations, like even if it's just for conjecture, like you're going to go need to invest some payroll dollars, right? Like even if it doesn't make sense on the field, at least show the fans like you're committed to doing this.
If you're asking the fan base to subsidize a new stadium, then the least John Sherman can do is invest in the product on the field.
Well, invest more. I think he is investing in the product on the field, but invest more obviously, like in more obvious ways. Like we're going to bring in 2 decent free agents, not 2 really bad free agents that kind of nobody else wanted. And we're just like, oh yeah, we'll take them for maybe a discount. No, like some real legitimate, like starting pitching type. And I know that that's not the smart thing to do because they're not close enough to do that on the field. But that's this dilemma that they face, right? They're not close enough to make that push, which I think that they will. And I think John Sherman will when the time's right, but the time's not right. And now under all the new management and all that stuff, we'd hoped that some of the young players that were struggling in the old regime would get better, and they haven't. So they haven't. All right, let's go to the phone lines real quick. Bill on the line wants to talk about this Royals Stadium. Bill, what's on your mind? Welcome into Sports Daily. Do we still have Bill, Jad? We might have lost Bill. Bill, if you want to chime back in, you can give us a call. We're going to take a quick break. If you want to get your thoughts in, Bill, we'll take you on the other side. IHOP hotline 869-1240. If you want to weigh in on this Royals conversation, you can do it. It's interesting. It's fascinating. I'm fascinated by this. I think that it's the wrong play to go after this type of thing for the Royals at this moment. You got to be good to do what they're trying to do, I think. 869-1240. We'll come back. More Sports Daily right after this. Welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily on KFH. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor with you. Tommy, have you followed all the latest in realignment? ACC annoyed. Teams are, flirting. And it's a foregone conclusion, right? The ACC. The question to me becomes like, how quickly does this happen? How quickly do we see the ACC not look like it currently looks? And I think by this time next year, there will be things in motion that will make that happen. I think it's going to come much quicker than this grant of rights. I think the one thing that makes it interesting is that, the climate of the media economy is cooling significantly. And so I don't know how much appetite there's going to be in that regard and how much they can navigate that. That may delay this, but it's coming. And no matter what the ACC does, if the Big Ten and the SEC come calling for any school, those schools will leave, and they should leave. And there's nothing anybody else can do about that. There's nothing the ACC can do about that. There's nothing the Big 12 can do about that. There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, it's a foregone conclusion at this point. I mean, I guess you can try and put a Band-Aid on it and survive. But if you put a Band-Aid on it, your conference and your teams and your members are all making less money. But the Big 12 just proved to us, Tommy, that even without Texas and Oklahoma, they're making more money now with the new deal. That same thing will happen in the ACC, right? If those 5 to 7, schools get poached by the other two leagues, everybody else is going to still make more money than they're currently making. So I don't even know internally what the appetite's going to be to stay and remain as things are right now, because history's telling them, right, and what the Pac-12 is able to get and the struggles they're having and what the Big 12 was able to get, that it's still going to be better. Like your overall loss may still be a net gain if you're, I don't know, who's one of the Louisville.
Right. And I think that, one thing that these other conferences, the ACC, the Pac-12, that they will look back on, and probably kick themselves a little bit, at least the Pac-12 in that regard, is that the Big Ten and the SEC, they struck while the iron was hot. Like, they got their deal done when the appetite it was never bigger, than when they were able to get their media deals done. Same thing with the Big 12. Like, they were able to get a deal done aggressively, proactively. They were able to jump in and get a deal done that benefited the member schools. And now, and I agree with you. I mean, we've read all these different articles, at least I have over the last few weeks, about what's happening in the, sports media landscape, and ESPN has done a ton of layoffs and like all of this stuff. The appetite, I think, is cooling a little bit, from a media perspective on, I don't know. I think they're still going to be able to get deals done, but probably not as good of a deal, as the SEC got, the Big 10 got, the Big 12 got, all of that, so this definitely, when we're, I don't know, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, and we're looking back on this realignment era, really, I mean, it's that old saying that what fortune favors the bold, right? Like the conferences that jumped in aggressively head first and they were on the forefront of it, they were the ones that got the payday.
Yeah. I don't know what the ACC is going to do here. They'll either learn from history or they won't, right? They'll either do and be aggressive, or they'll wait until they get poached and long term, I think, make less money, because there's no chance this league stays together till what is it, 2032? Like, it's not going to happen.
Not a chance. So what's the aggressive play then for them?
I don't know. That's the issue here, because, well, the aggressive play right now is to keep all your members and merge, right, with the Big 12. That's the aggressive play.
Right.
I don't know what the appetite from the TV networks will be for that. That's going to be the problem, is because ESPN probably loves the deal they're currently in and is in a challenging, again, media economic climate. That's the aggressive play, to go merge with the Big 12 now. But the problem is, again, you can do that, but the teams that the Big 10 and the SEC want they're going to be gone. Like, whatever teams are determined to be desirable by those leagues, those teams will leave. So how do you merge with that so obviously looming over everything, right? You're not going to convince Clemson that they're going to be in a better position in a merged league, as good as that will be, than they would be if they went to the SEC, for example. Because it's not,
with Florida State.
Not true. Right. It's just not true. So I don't know how you, like, those two things, there's almost like a chicken and an egg, right? You sort of have to wait for that to happen, I think, to some degree, because it's going to happen. Or I guess you can bring them to the table and just say, let's all do this. But the problem is, those schools, like, if they know that the Big 10 or the SEC is interested, how do you even pretend to be interested in anything else? Because that is going to be your best case scenario, I think, financially, at least in the short term. So I don't know what the quick answer is, but I know the conversations need to be need to be being had now. Like not John Sherman. We just talked about John Sherman. Brett Yormark and the ACC commissioner, who I don't know that person's name off the top of my head, need to be having conversations now, realistic ones too. Like, what are the teams you think are going to leave, right? Like, let's be honest about this, just man to man, okay? Those are now let's begin to just explore some conversations with the networks. If that is to happen, what does this look like to you? Is there an appetite for this? Is there an appetite to add basically all those teams to the current Big 12 deal, right? Is that desire there? We know that basketball is this secondary thing, but it's also an important thing because that piece of it, if the Big 12 and the ACC merged, you'd have the second best basketball league in the world, right? Hands down, not close. Best basketball league outside of the NBA on the planet. Most entertaining anyway. So that's a piece of it too to bring to the table. I just don't know what the appetite is from the media right now until we get the economy like back in order. I don't know how long that's going to take. And I don't know what to do with the teams that are so clearly going to leave, which again, I don't blame them. I would do the same thing. Like if the SEC or the Big Ten comes calling, I'm gone, right? Because I'll make more money. And for public institutions, I don't discount the fact that there's almost an obligation to do that, right? Like if you're a public institution and there is an opportunity for the institution to generate that much more revenue without tax dollars, I think that there's an obligation to do that. Private, you can do whatever you want. Public, if Florida State is offered that spot, they have to do their due diligence and take that spot. They owe that to the taxpayers.
We know that football is driving the ship on all of this, right? Like that's obviously that's a no-brainer that it's football, football, football. I get all that. But man, that basketball league, if the Big 12 and ACC merged, I mean, can you imagine a basketball league that has Kansas, Duke, and North Carolina all in the same league? I mean, come on. And then, of course, all the other ones, your Baylor and your, Texas Tech and all these other, schools and teams that are Houston, all these other basketball heavy schools that are going to be in the league. But man, a KU, Duke, North Carolina league would be incredible. And so again, like the dollars, the revenue, all of that will always be driven by football. And by the way, Duke and North Carolina, they don't have slouches of football programs either. Like they're pretty solid, So I mean, that would be
Duke's not. Duke's not in this conversation. I don't think to go to the SEC or the Big Ten. By the way,
right.
So the schools like it's Virginia Tech, Virginia, Miami, Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, and North Carolina State. Those are the teams listed. I would be surprised if it's actually all those teams. I think it's more likely to be, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, maybe Virginia. And that's probably it. And so I think there's plenty of gain, obviously, for the Big 12. And I do. Here's what I'm happy about, Tommy, selfishly for like us in this part of the world. The conversations that need to be happening, I think we're comfortable enough now at this point to think that Brett Yormark's having them, right?
Yeah,
like
for sure.
We're not going into this thinking, please, Big 12, be aggressive. Please be aggressive. Please be aggressive. We know
and he's not sitting
aggressive.
back on his laurels either. I mean, there was a report, I think on Friday, that he was having conversations with Connecticut, right? And so having those conversations with the most recent NCAA basketball champion in UConn, having those conversations right now, shows that even with the expansion that the Big 12 has been able to pull off, he's not done. He's not comfortable. The reports are that he wants to be in the New York market, and UConn will allow him to be in that New York market, a little bit better than what the Big 12 currently is. So, I mean, those conversations are ongoing right now. And so I think that we have all, it's very rare for me, by the way, to say, I'm putting my trust in someone and I implicitly trust them with the decisions. I trust Brett Yormark and the direction that he's going and trying to take this conference.
I do too. I do too, because I know he's being aggressive, and I don't know what he's going to be able to accomplish, but I know he's being aggressive, which is what needs to happen. Kind of like period. Like if you're not aggressive in this current environment, you're going to get left behind. You're going
Adapt
to
or
get
die.
left behind. Yep. 869-1240, the IHOP hotline. When we come back, we'll talk Wichita State softball. The season ends in Stillwater. We'll talk about what happened, how wild and crazy that regional was for them. We'll hit that as we make our way through and begin to get ready for the now baseball postseason for Wichita State, and track, by the way, which is coming up here pretty quick. We'll do all that next. Sports Daily, Albracht and Castor, coming right back. All right, welcome back in, everybody, to Sports Daily. Glad to have you here with us. We are happy to be here. Man, softball, Tommy. So close. So close. What a run. What a generation, I guess, this roster has provided for us. So it was wild and crazy, man. If you didn't see it, so they had all the rain delays Friday. So the Nebraska game actually moved over to ESPN Plus, but that one they were down 5-0. We left the air after the delays in our 10 o'clock newscast. I was working Friday night. They were down 5-0. And by the time I got home, it was like 5-2 or 5-3. And they complete that comeback. And they go up and they get the win 6-5. It was dramatic, exciting. It was like, all right, they finally unlocked. They come back on Saturday. They play Oklahoma State in the winner's bracket game, and they get blanked. Oklahoma State, there were, a lot of, mistakes or bad fortune for Wichita State. And then they come back and play Nebraska again in an elimination game, and they get up early. Lauren Mills has a couple of bombs, but they kept giving up leads. They went up. They had a couple of runs. They were, I think, 3 runs ahead in the 7th and give up the lead and go to extra innings. Then in the 9th, in extra innings, they get up 2 runs and give up the lead and ultimately the game. And that's how the season ends. And that is a grueling way to end it. I'm not sure, though, even if they got the win against Nebraska, I'm not sure that they were hitting the way they needed to be hitting in general to go beat Oklahoma twice in a row. So, the ultimate outcome may be similar. It sucks that it ended that way, but they were exciting games, man. They were really, really good. And it was a team that, gave us a lot this year, and disappointing end, but looking back and ultimately wildly successful season again as Wichita State comes away with 44 wins on the year and begins the stages of upgrading facilities and things. And the future is bright. But Sydney McKinney, who, one of the best players in the world, man.
End of an era with Sydney McKinney. Yeah, I mean, look, like that regional was so exciting. I'll tell you one thing, even though Wichita State didn't make it to the championship game, they certainly were entertaining throughout the entire regional. That opening game against Nebraska was a ton of fun to watch. And then, of course, going back and playing Nebraska again, that's really hard to do, beat a team like that, a couple times in a row. They didn't have their best stuff against Oklahoma State, and so ultimately it didn't work out for them. And that was one of the big fears, right? And that's always been the Achilles heel of this current roster for Wichita State is, not quite being at the level to host a regional, and then knowing that you're going to have to go to either Norman, Stillwater, or Fayetteville. And all 3 of those, locations are really, really, really difficult. And, I think that when you're looking back on this era of Shocker softball, and they're not done, by the way, right? Like they've got great returners, and Allison Barnard's going to be back. They've got some really good pitching that's coming back. Alex Aguilar was great, in her freshman year, and they've got some really good hitters that are coming back and returning. So they've got a lot of firepower returning, to this team next season. But this particular era with Sydney McKinney, who is the best softball player on the planet, I think that's ultimately, they're fun, they're entertaining, they're exciting to watch. Could never really get over that hump to be considered one of the elite teams in the country in college softball.
Yeah, it's tough. I think that the future with Sydney McKinney is, again, a number 1 draft pick. To me, the most famous and, recognizable and influential athlete since Ron and Fred at Wichita State. And that's considering they've had like some NBA guys come through. But when you're talking about like investment in the community and all that stuff, and time spent, which is also a factor. But it's not just Sydney McKinney that they're losing. They're losing Lauren Mills, who had a couple of bombs in that game, who's been one of the most enjoyable players, in Zoe Jones. Yeah. So, it's tough. It's going to be, they're going to have to, but we've seen now some really young players play really well for them. And, moving forward, Addie Barnard's going to be, sort of the banner carrier for that. And they'll be fine. And, they've done such a great job in those facilities. And I think once the facilities get there, it really just becomes, can you continue to grow? There's no reason to think that they can't. It is always unnerving to lose, the kind of talent that they're going to lose this season, but it'll be fine. And they'll be okay, and they'll retool and reload and do all those things. And they've actually done a really nice job in the portal. So they're building a reputation, which matters when it comes to the portal. Wichita State baseball, and you'll hear these games here with us on KFH, begins the postseason tomorrow. And they will play Memphis, and they get it done. They'll play the last game of the day. It's a scheduled, basically, it's 47 minutes after the 3 o'clock game. They don't even try to give you a game time. So you're talking, it's going to be 7:30 probably if things go on time. And they'll open against Memphis. Just looking against Memphis, they took 2 of 3 against Memphis in Wichita this regular season. So take anything from that if you'd like. In the postseason, it becomes a question of pitching and, how does that all line up? And teams are all scrambling a bit. And I think that's what we like about Wichita State, right? Like that's one thing in this postseason that we feel like Wichita State, can have some success with is pitching and the depth there. They've got, Peyton Tolley, Grant Adler, have thrown tons of innings for them, and Clark Candiotti. Is it just those 3? Do they need to pitch a bullpen game? I don't know. And I think that you just line them up that way, Adler, Tolley, Candiotti, which is, sort of been the success. I don't know how you do that. That's all strategic, and in conference tournaments, it gets really interesting. But what we do know is they got to win it, right? They've got to win the conference tournament to get through. So these will be as highly anticipated, I think, shocker baseball games as we've had in a while, because it feels like they can win it.
Yeah.
We always know that's the path in recent years, but this year it feels like they have a decent shot. They swept East Carolina. They can win this thing. I mean, it's that simple.
The path is right there for them. It really is. It's clear as day. They know exactly the objective. They know exactly what they have to do in the conference tournament to make it to the postseason, and that's win the dang thing, right? They've got the hitting to do it. They've got the pitching to do it. We've seen them have a high level of success against really, really good baseball teams earlier this season. And, oh, by the way, they had a really good weekend series against UCF to wrap up the regular season over the weekend. So the momentum is there. They've got that they're playing like they could win a conference championship, a conference tournament championship. The question becomes, can they sustain it throughout the entire tournament? And so it gets going tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. But I certainly think that, this is not a situation where, you're like, oh, it'd be great if they could catch fire and maybe it'll happen. No, I think that they literally have the talent and the coaching and the roster to be able to get it done.
Yeah, I do too. We'll see. We'll hear those games with us here. It'll be fun. I'm excited about it. And Mike Kennedy will have the call. It was good to talk to them on, was that Friday? They had a wacky, by the way, they played games. They just needed one to clinch that 3 seed. They got it in the second game, and then they didn't really have anything else to play for other than Pride, which of course you always play for Pride. But that's what's on the table now. So we turn our attention then to Wichita State baseball this week. And then you've got track and field, and they will begin theirs as well to the West preliminaries. So that's also there. And those begin on Wednesday. And that gets a little trickier to follow, but those come on Wednesday through the weekend into Saturday. And then if anybody makes it through, you get the outdoor championships later this month. All right, we're going to come back. We're going to wrap this up for a Monday edition of Sports Daily. Albracht and Castor, don't go away.
Tricked out, decked out, check us out. Truck stuff. Every customer.
All right, that's it for us, everybody, on a Monday edition of Sports Daily. Thank you to everybody for listening on KFH. Thanks for everybody watching on our video stream on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Tommy and I will be back tomorrow. What's on tap the rest of today? Jim Rome at 11, Bob and Jeff at 2, Maggie and Perloff at 4, Zach Gelb for an hour and a half before Royals Tigers at 6:30 right here on KFH. Congratulations to our Win Surge ticket winners. We'll have more coming up the rest of the week. All kinds of good stuff for you this week. We're excited about it and glad you're here with us. For Tommy and Jad, I'm Jacob. We'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, thanks, Jad. Good way to start the week.